What is up, everybody? Welcome to this week's episode of the Dense Pixels podcast. I'm Chris Brad, joined by my co-host Micah.
Hey.
And Carrie.
What's up?
What is up is that last week was a really busy week for me personally because of Gamescom and watching all the Gamescom stuff, the Democratic National Convention, and watching a lot of stuff around that, which I will talk about that stuff and look forward, not here. A couple follow-up from last week, though. Reportedly, according to IGN, I didn't put it in the docket, but I figured we just mentioned up top. The game that had Tim Walz very down bad on the Dreamcast that his wife had to take it away was Crazy Taxi, which I respect.
Okay. All right.
So hopefully Tim Walz looking very forward to the upcoming new Crazy Taxi game that reportedly is in development at Sega, whatever that's going to be. So it's important that we knew, and now we know, and I'm just glad it wasn't like NFL 2K2 or something like that. Like that.
Yeah. I mean, I'd have given him a pass, right? Because he's a coach, assistant, or otherwise. But
Crazy Taxi's a classic.
But yeah, man, yeah, it's awesome. Everybody loves Crazy Taxi.
Gamescom.
Yeah, that's why I started listening to The Offspring.
Wait, hang on. You started listening to like you actually listened to The Offspring back then?
Yeah. And it was because of Crazy Taxi.
I wouldn't have pegged.
I mean, that track. I feel like Crazy Taxi is the less cited, but probably still as impactful, like soundtrack of the era in terms of introducing teens to different kinds of like rock and alternative. As fucking Tony Hawk's Pro Skater. Like, it's those two for me, honestly, as far as impactful, like, popular music kind of soundtracks.
Yeah.
Fun fact, The Offspring is my wife's favorite band, which is a fact that embarrasses me.
Not what I would have guessed.
A little bit, yeah.
I wouldn't be embarrassed. There's a million ways.
I mean, I have no room to talk, obviously. Like, my favorite bands are the subject of much ridicule out there. Dave Matthews.
Okay, I
Oasis.
don't mind Dave Matthews.
Which?
They're just, here's the thing, they're very straight white boy choices.
They
is
are.
what they are.
Very
like,
much so.
I'm not offended, but also it's like, that makes sense looking at you.
Yeah.
So
Apparently Oasis might be getting back together next year, so that's very exciting. If
I've been
they
hearing
come
those
around.
rumors.
So
How much you willing to spend on a ticket for that tour?
I would go. I've seen them once, and it was one of my favorite concerts, actually. So I would absolutely, if they came in the general vicinity to the Maryland area, I would absolutely check that out. So 100%. Let's get into Gamescom. We are not going to go blow by blow through Gamescom. I figure we'll take a very high-level view at some of the more notable announcements or things shown at Gamescom, and then we'll dig deep into two specific things that some of us are very passionate about. I think the biggest news coming out from Gamescom, and I don't know why, because I feel like that we were already aware that this was going to be the case, and I guess this news just makes it official, is that while they announced that the new Indiana Jones game is coming out on December 9th on PC and Xbox, it's also coming to PlayStation in March of 2025. So like the big news coming out from that is the fact that this kind of officially is Microsoft saying, look, we are not a first party only platform anymore. We're not doing exclusives anymore. Pretty sure that every game produced by them going forward, with the exception of maybe a few, like I think Avowed will still stay exclusive at least for a time. But I think most games coming out from them going forward are going to be coming out on PlayStation, if not day and date, within a pretty short time span. Which again, I thought we'd already established that. So I don't know why people were losing their shit about it.
I mean, I guess it's, I don't know, official, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know. I want to like this game. There's just something about it. I don't know what it is. I can't put my finger on it. Yeah, I want Indiana Jones to be good, but I don't know. And it might be something as shallow as I don't get to see Indiana Jones.
No, you do.
You know what I mean?
It switches between third and first person throughout the game.
Okay.
So apparently, when you're doing like puzzles and stuff like that, that's all in third person. But when you're doing like the action, it shifts to a first person perspective. And for people that played the hands on, reportedly, that shift is not as jarring as you might assume it could be. In that, so we'll see what happens there.
You know, there's one thing that Indy does well, and that's fighting and fisticuffs and using the whip. And I hate any type of like melee combat in first person.
Yeah,
It doesn't feel impactful. It feels like I'm swinging at air. It feels like the Elder Scrolls thing where you're just swinging at nothing and like, oh, okay, I guess it hit. So I don't know.
we'll have to see. I mean, you're gonna play it regardless, right? I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I'm gonna play it. I'm gonna play it. I might treat it like this Star Wars game that's getting reviewed now, and wait for it to go on sale.
Okay,
But I will eventually play it.
gotcha. I'd also be remiss if I didn't mention the return of Peter Molyneux with a fantastic mea culpa of, man, I really shouldn't have gotten into those mobile and crypto games. Everybody? Yeah, I think not. And apparently, his new game, which does not have a publisher yet, is kind of like a amalgamation of all of his greatest hits, essentially. So, like, it's kind of Fable, Populous, and Black and White all rolled into one, called Masters of Albion, which people raised an eyebrow about because that's also the name of the realm in Fable that you play in, according to Peter Molyneux, and I guess this is true. Albion is kind of the fantasy name for England in general, but obviously a wink and a nod to some other stuff there. Look, I missed the Molyneux craze. Like by the time I learned who Peter Molyneux was, he was kind of like,
He was already a bit of a punchline.
yeah, he was Peter Molyneux, overpromiser of things, essentially, and that was kind of a joke. So I'll be very curious to see how this game unfolds. He was trying very hard, I could tell, to restrain himself as they went through kind of the overview. But this is essentially his return to a new like God game style that we haven't seen. And if it looks interesting, look, I'll give it a shot. Again, I was not there for the Molyneux Renaissance back in the early 2000s, late 90s on PC, which is where he made all of his games that kind of really have stood the test of time, I would say. But we'll see what happens with Masters of Albion. A lot of people also talked about the reveal of Secret Level, which is a new show coming to Amazon Prime. It's being headed up by Tim Miller of Deadpool fame, which is an anthology series that's going to have original stories but set in the world of famous video game properties and other fantasy properties. So kind of lined up already that they've announced Armored Core, D&D, Mega Man, Pac-Man, Sifu, Spelunky, Outer Worlds, Unreal Tournament, and Warhammer 40K, with a few others to go. Could be interesting. Kind of a unique spin on these things.
I'm actually really excited about it, and I was going to talk about it on the Nerdpocalypse, but I showed the trailer to those two dorks, those two buzzkills, those two wet blankets, and they were like, "Oh, what's this? Wuzzle wuzzle? What am I supposed to do with this?" Right? Like, and I'm like, "All right, yo, all right."
Well, you can talk about it here with your people, so that's okay.
That's right, my real friends.
So, and I think this is coming out in December. Amazon's been on a bit of a heater. Micah, did you watch that new Batman series that's on Prime?
I watched it and I loved it.
Good.
I loved every second of it. And I always look, if you're gonna keep doing Batman, right? Like if you're gonna keep doing these things, you got to change them up a bit. And I can appreciate stuff like that. And not just like gender bent, roles, but like the penguin was gender bent, but like that wasn't the big thing for me. The big thing for me was like her kids were the Trump children, were the Trump boys, and, like it was just hilarious. And she killed one of them, like Jesus Christ. I love my favorite Batman character is Two-Face,
Hmm.
and I absolutely love what they did with that character. Also like the fact that that Batman character in the Batman in that show is a bit of a dickhead and an asshole, and he's not like the hero of it, right? It's Barbara Gordon. But anyway, I'm going off on a tangent. Um, here, I'll bring it back. I'll circle back around to video games. There's a new Batman Arkham game coming out, but it's for the Meta Quest 3.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's I was talking. I think it was Malcolm I was talking with in the chat, but basically I called that like the fucking uh like Vomit Simulator 3000 if I were to play that game, because it's not one of those VR games where it's like point to point movement, like it's free movement, and I cannot do it. So not that I have MetaQuest 3 to play it on anyway too in the first place, but no thank you. Yeah, apparently a lot of people had, because they had announced that previously. This is just the first time that we've really seen it. But a lot of people had not heard the initial announcement, so when they saw like new Batman Arkham, they got really excited, and then immediately had the excitement dashed when they saw that it was a VR exclusive title. So that is a shame for those folks that got excited for 2 seconds for a new Batman Arkham game. But there's two games in particular that I want to spend a little bit more time on, and the first one is one that I am in full on fucking hype. Give it to me now. It's going to be a long 8-month wait, or however long it takes for this game to come out. And that's Monster Hunter Wilds. And Carrie, I think, is also right beside me in that level of excitement that's coming.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Wilds looks incredible. Yeah, I mean, they've been doing a bunch of live streams, gameplay demos, all sorts of stuff. Lots of news that I'm excited about as someone I like to be a bit of what's known as a fashion hunter. So I'm glad that like Capcom confirmed that they're doing away with gender locked armor. So you know, you can now just sort of like dress any hunter in whatever armor you want, which is great.
Woke.
Yeah, so fucking woke, right? God, letting people wear whatever they want. I've been wearing boys' clothes since I was probably 6, but whatever. But yeah, like everything looks great. Like the weapons look great. Little quality of life upgrades, like for fuck's sake, you can now move barrel bombs after you place them. They're not just stuck there. That's a big one. I rely on bombs quite a bit in my style of hunting. Mounting is back after being replaced with wyvern riding and the whole wire bug mechanic in Rise, which I didn't hate. But I prefer just sort of mounting the monster and doing that whole thing as in World. So I'm really glad that that's back. A lot of things to look forward to. The new monsters look great. Everything looks great.
Yeah.
Everything looks great. I'm
I
sure
mean,
it's going to make my computer sound like a jet engine, but that's fine.
I'm also pretty stoked that like instead of having the one central camp that you normally go back to between missions, it looks like every biome is going to have its own campsite that's kind of central in the map, and and there's no like, you don't have to pick, like there's no quest board in this game. Apparently, like to go hunt a monster, like you just go hunting, and like when you engage a monster, it kind of starts a quest for you that you
Related
can then,
to that monster, yeah.
yep, that you can then complete. It, it is the, was the is the lore bomb like something they've had before in the game?
No, that's new.
Okay, that's cool, because they showed during one of the gameplay
So
sessions.
I would say what was similar in Rise
Mhm.
was they like one of the little endemic life that you could pick up called the stink mink,
Mhm.
which wasn't a bomb, but it was like a little creature that you could pick up, and then like when you took the creature back out, it basically like it makes you stinky, and so you could basically make yourself stink like whatever
Right.
for a short period of time, and that was how you could sort of lure monsters to each other so that they would like fight each other and whatnot. But this is the first time that they've had like, I guess, like a ranged like actual piece of like something that you shoot at the monster, like a dung pod or a flash pod or something like that,
Yeah.
that is intended to lure them into traps or into different areas of the map and
Or
stuff like
just
that.
into other monsters, because like one of the things they showed is when you're fighting one of the lower level monsters, the hunter ran off and got the attention of like one of the apex monsters that was really strong, not to try to kill it, but to kind of just get its attention to kite it over to the monster they were actually fighting, and then throwing like a lure pod at the monster they were fighting, be like, no, actually attack that guy over there, and you know, it did like some insane damage. With its kind of big attack that it has, so that was really cool. Like you talked about throwing barrel bombs, they also showed so in other Monster Hunter games you can send up like a flare, and other actual players can come into your game and help you take on the monster. Now you can actually, instead of having other players, if you prefer, you can actually have up to 3 AI characters come in to assist you on the hunt as well, and they don't act stupidly. Apparently, like one of the things they showed is when you came up upon a monster that's sleeping, it's usually customary to have people set up like barrel bombs, because when you attack a monster, when they're asleep, you do double damage. And the AI characters like wait for you to actually trigger the barrel. Like they don't just go in and be like, "Oh, time to go whack this thing that's sitting here." Like apparently the AI development for the other players, they're taking great pains to make it as intelligent as they can. So this looks great. It's going to be it's also the first time they've ever done simultaneous launch on all consoles at the same time. So it's coming to PC and console at the same date, and there's crossplay already enabled. They've already confirmed that that's happening. So we will be able to play together no matter what system you have to play on. Micah, if you were ever
Yay.
even tangentially interested in Monster Hunter, it seems like this might be the one to jump in on.
So I played what was the one that came before this one?
Rise or World?
Rise.
Monster
Rise was
Hunter
the one.
Rise. Yeah, I played that, and I wanted to get into it. But I feel like this is a game that like really thrives on multiple people playing at the same time and having a good time. Kind of like an MMO. And there was just something about like controls. I couldn't really find a weapon that I really kind of gravitated toward, and that's what kind of killed it. Like I can play those type of games by myself, but there was something I couldn't find a weapon that really kind of spoke to me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Maybe I'll give this one a shot.
Yeah. And I will say, out of all the games that have online play where you can play with randos, like Monster Hunter is one of the better ones. Like everyone kind of gets it, as far as like you learn proper etiquettes and you learn like the right things to do the more you play. And there's not too many people that act like jackasses. Plus, there's really no griefing because you can't attack other players. So, like it's the only thing that sucks is when one player like runs off to one side of the map just to go resource farming when the other players are actually trying to attack monsters and stuff like that. That can be a little annoying, but but the fact that it's a completely open world might solve some of that problem too. So we'll see. The other game that I've been binging information on is they finally revealed for the first time gameplay and some of the new things that are coming to Civilization 7, which is now coming out in February. And there is quite a bit of change happening to this game. Some things they're borrowing from other games in this genre that people were quick to point out, like, hey, other games have done this. But other games did it poorly, and I'm kind of hoping Civ is kind of like the Apple to some of the other 4X games' Android that's out there, where, like, yeah, like, these other people did it first, but, like, Civ did it correctly. Because, like, one of the things that, probably the biggest change is that currently in Civilization, you pick a civilization, you just start with that Civ, and you play it through the entire game. Now the game happens across 3 distinct ages in the game, and when you switch ages, you actually have the ability to switch civilizations when you switch that age. Now, it doesn't seem like the options to switch will be free form. I think they'll be kind of limited based on your initial civilization choice. And the other thing that's also very interesting is that leaders are now divorced from civilization. So you can pair any leader with any civilization, and there's unique bonuses that come with both things. Now, they do kind of point you in the direction of using quote unquote historically accurate civilizations with leaders, but you don't have to. But they do kind of point out, like, hey, here's the ones that synergize the best, essentially, because they're historically accurate, whereas the other ones, it's gonna be a little bit more freewheeling. So that's causing a lot of strife. The whole 3 ages thing, and the fact that leaders and civs can be picked separately, and the fact that you can change civilizations, is something that's completely new to the Civilization franchise. One of the changes that has got a lot of praise is the fact that they've kind of taken barbarians, which are a consistent but kind of annoying part of Civ, and the city-states, which are the non-player smaller countries that you can come across, and kind of mash them up into one mechanic, kind of taking the best aspects from both of those, which I think is cool. Like, having more reactive city-states, I think, is a good thing, because the city-states really just kind of sit there right now, either to collect envoys from you to give you bonuses, or to get conquered by you, like if you'd rather have the land for yourself. So that'll be pretty interesting as well. The art style is shading a little bit more towards the realistic, as opposed to the kind of like over accentuated cartoonish style of the characters in Civ 6, which I think most people are pretty big fans of. But yeah, it looks very interesting. They've also made some changes to how military units work, which seem interesting. And it's a very different direction, and I kind of appreciate that, because, you know, if you're going 8 years between franchises, like, I feel like Civ is a franchise, even though I'm relatively new to it, where you can kind of take bolder swings because the other games still exist, right? Like, if Civ 7 isn't your specific cup of tea, but you really like Civ 6, you can't, like, Civ 6 is still out there and still relevant, right? Like, people are still playing it. And some people didn't like 6 and still play 5, even though 5 came out, I think, back in, like, 2010 or 2009 or something like that. So I'm totally fine with them kind of, you know, taking some big chances and doing some very different things. Some folks in the community are a little skeptical. I say, you know, let it play out a little bit, and, you know, we'll see what happens. So I'm willing to give this a chance. It looks pretty cool. Looking forward to February when Civ comes out. I do hope they touch up the UI a little bit, because the UI that they showed did look a little bland in this presentation, but I think that's kind of what they're going to be working on for pretty much the end of the development cycle. I think the gameplay itself is pretty set. Oh, and they got Gwendolyn Christie to be the narrator, which works perfectly, I think.
Sick.
She definitely has the right voice for that, following Scene Bean, who was the narrator in Civ 6.
Scene Bean.
Yes.
Thank you for pronouncing
You're
it
welcome.
properly.
You're welcome. Oh my goodness. All right, well, let's take a quick break, and then we'll be back with this week's news. So the big news of this week is the reception of Black Myth Wukong, which we talked about last week in a controversial fashion due to a letter that they sent out to some content creators providing content for the game. I do want to follow up. Apparently, that letter did go out to specifically to people who were doing like a paid sponsorship stream of the game. So it's a little bit more understandable. I still think it's a really unforced error to be like, hey, don't talk about feminism while you're streaming Black Myth Wukong and we're paying you. Like, I understand where they're coming from, but
it's kind of weird.
Yeah,
it's
it's a story you didn't need. It's a story you didn't know. Put it that way. But meanwhile, it hasn't hurt the reception of the game at all, because as of this recording, Black Myth Wukong is, in terms of concurrent users, by far the most successful single-player game on Steam ever. Which I think that this article here says they have over 2.2 million players is where they ended up. I think they actually ended up around like 2.5 million players, which has exceeded Power World, which got over 2 million earlier this year. It exceeded Counter-Strike 2's peak concurrent count. Lost Ark, Dota 2, Cyberpunk, like all these games. Cyberpunk was the previous highest ranking single player game, and they basically 2.5 times what Cyberpunk had as far as concurrent users.
Are these worldwide numbers?
It is,
Yes.
and that's
okay.
that
Well,
is
okay.
that is the thing that people pointed out, is that there's no hard data to be able to point to, but based on reviews, it seems like about 80% of the games being played are in China.
Okay. All right. So, I was about to say, I mean, like, I'm sure this is a fine game and all.
Yeah.
But
which it is, apparently. It's got like an 82, I think, on Metacritic right now.
Right. But the way people are in this country, I saw that headline and I was like, wait a minute, what?
There does seem to be a big national pride kind of surge around this game in China, because this is the first big like AAA game to come out worldwide from a Chinese developer. Apparently, it's causing shortages of PlayStation 5s in China. Like PS5s are fucking flying off the shelf. And I think that's really cool, right? I mean, obviously, like publishers here are going to be paying enormous amounts of attention to this. Seeing like as if China wasn't already kind of like the great white whale of markets to break into. Especially now, I kind of hope that they're not all like, all right, well, we need our own journey to the West to appeal to the Chinese, because I think a lot of the momentum driving this is the fact that this is a Chinese developer that's developing this, and just because
it's a Chinese developer adapting Chinese mythology with a massive budget to make it look really good.
Correct.
That being said, most of what I'm hearing about this game is that it is fine. Like, it is a middle of the road character action game. I mean, it's one of these like 7.5, 8 out of 10 games. But, what I worry about as far as Western developers seeing the success of this game is that they're going to be like, we got to do more with Chinese mythology, and they're going to do it wrong.
There you go. Enslaved Odyssey to the West 2 coming soon.
Bitch. Here was the game, wasn't it?
That was another 7.5 out of 10 game.
That was perfect. I played that game. It was fine. It was perfectly cromulent.
Absolutely. And to me, like, it just makes it that much more of a shame that they had to put out that stupid instruction guide to streamers, because this could have just been a very triumphant period for this game, but that news story just kind of hangs like a pall over some of it. Like, I'm sure over in mainland China they couldn't give two shits about that sort of thing. But, it would be cool for this just to be like, wow, what a cool thing. This game, these people worked really hard. Chinese people really embracing the game, enjoying it, that sort of thing. I think I also heard someone say, like, if there is such a thing as reverse review bombing, that's also probably happening to this game, because the review scores on Steam are just, like, incredibly, overwhelmingly positive, many of which are done by people that have, like, no time on record with the game. Like, hey, I just installed it, but it's a 10 out of 10. Fantastic and amazing. So, but it's cool. Like I said, I'm glad that the game is doing well, and it'll be curious to see the knock-on effects that this has across the wider industry over the coming years. I can just kind of see Yves Guillemot already with like the dollar signs in his eyes, like, oh man, like we need to make Assassin's Creed China. I don't know how, I don't know what it'll be, but we got to set an Assassin's Creed game in China because look at all those China bucks that are just sitting over
And
there.
China bugs.
And the thing is, like, they have a Chinese Assassin's Creed game, but it wasn't one of the mainline games.
Right. It was it was like one of the like a DS.
It was the
game,
two. It was
right?
one of the 2D.
It was
One of
a
the 2D.
2.5, yeah, one of
Yeah.
those 2D games, and it's
Yeah.
like, well, come on, bro. Like, like I don't know. I mean, I don't run a video game company, but who would have thought that appealing to the biggest market in the world would yield dividends? I don't know, man.
Maybe this is what will get EA back into doing basketball again. It's like we're coming out with a new NBA Live. It's gonna have Yao Ming on the cover. It's gonna be awesome.
Don't do
Let's
that.
fucking go.
Maybe we'll get another Jade Empire.
I don't think that's happening either, buddy.
Yeah, Assassin's Creed Chronicles.
Yeah. There was
Yeah.
like one in Russia. There was one in China.
There was one in China, India,
India.
and Russia.
That was the other one. Yep.
Yeah. It's a
Yep.
fucking Vita game. Yeah.
I call that the kind of half-hearted effort of Ubisoft to appeal to those markets without actually dedicating
without
the
really
resources to
making the
making a real
effort.
game. A real game, even
Yeah.
though
Yeah.
an Assassin's Creed in India probably could be really cool if they decided to make one. Could be
It would
very
be
Yeah.
interesting.
cool.
They would probably do what the WWE did and put the belt on a Canadian of Indian descent to appeal to Indians. And it's like, you're all the same, right? Get out of here.
Well,
I do recall that. I remember not being. I remember being shocked that happened, and then realizing exactly why when they did a big tour of India for the first time. I'm like, oh, it is literally just a cynical business move to pop your new Indian audience. Okay, good job, Vince.
Oh,
You fucking
corporations.
carnival barker. Not doing so hotly, despite also apparently being a perfectly cromulent game, is Concord. Which, and again, this is a PlayStation game, so I would assume that it's probably more successful on PlayStation consoles. But it did not even exceed 700 concurrent users on its launch day on Steam, which seems really bad.
yeah, that's pretty bad for a game that apparently spent 8 years in development. I think, I don't give a shit about hero shooters or Overwatch style. It's like not for me. Played a little bit of Overwatch back when, but like pre-Overwatch League, back when that game was like fun and not bullshit. And then Overwatch League happened, and now it's bullshit. Then Overwatch League went under. Haha. But looking at the roster, I've never been less impressed with a roster consisting of like 16, 20 characters before. Someone described them as it's as if they made a hero shooter using the NPC models from the first town of a failed sci-fi role-playing. Like, there's nothing memorable about any of these characters.
I've seen it described as as a roster that screams, "We have Guardians of the Galaxy at home," energy.
Or we have Overwatch at home.
Yeah.
Yeah. This very much a great value Overwatch kind of roster. It's just someone else described them as like it looks as if they asked an AI generator to come up with a roster of sci-fi characters. Like, there's no personality with any of them. It is remarkably bland across the board. And, that's what was a big thing that made Overwatch popular in the first place, is you had this really crazy cast of characters that didn't even really seem like they all belonged in the same game.
And I want to touch on that for a second, because the lead up to this game, obviously, like the reaction from the beta they did a couple weeks ago was not positive.
No.
This reminded me so much of when EA released Titanfall 2 in 2016. With all, like, they released it literally the weeks in between the new Battlefield and the new Call of Duty. Like, literally the week in between those two is when that game came out. there was almost no marketing push behind it. And they literally said to themselves, well, the game's made. We've already spent the money on it. We might as well just get it out there. And then that way it comes off our books. And Titanfall 2, you know, history has been very kind to Titanfall 2. Like it's looked back as actually a really good game. One of the best FPS campaigns that's out there, and the multiplayer has kind of been a cult favorite over the years. Mm-hmm. But because EA didn't support it, it didn't do anything when it first came out. And I feel the same about Sony here. And contrast that, and Carrie brought up Overwatch, and that's why I kind of wanted to pivot to this. Remember when Overwatch was coming out, and they had all those really high quality Blizzard style CG, you know, vignettes that they put out in advance to, you know, kind of show off each of the characters and show off their personalities a little bit. And obviously, like, they flooded the zone with as much marketing as they possibly could. And again, Overwatch, like, not only was Overwatch a really good game, which it was, but the marketing that Overwatch did and the strategy behind how the game's release literally killed another game. Like people forgot that Battleborn also came out around that same time and was completely murked by Overwatch. And again, Battleborn had its issues, I'm sure, but it didn't. I mean, when put next to Overwatch, it was dead on arrival. It had no chance. And I feel like in this situation, as Carrie also mentioned, this game's been in development for 8 years. So literally the year after Overwatch came out, Sony was like, well, we need to get our own Overwatch happening. And so they've been working on this for a long time. But I think they realized that it's possible that, like, hero shooter craze has gone down considerably. It's a $40 game. It's not free to play. And the beta got really mixed reviews, so let's just kind of put it out there. I've not seen any advertising for Concord. Haven't seen any commercials for Concord. Haven't seen any of that out there for this game. And so I think Sony kind of is at the realization as well that, you know, it's a sunk cost, but might as well put it out, see what happens. Maybe they'll try to gin up some player base on PlayStation by, you know, putting it out for free in a couple months on PlayStation Plus, and maybe that might kind of invigorate things. And maybe if more people get the game in their hands, the game could have a second life. Because again, apparently the game itself is fine. Like, it's good. It's a good one of these, essentially. But
right, the problem is that the enthusiasm for one of these is just not there anymore.
Right,
like,
and the fact that, you know,
was.
Overwatch still exists. It's still kind of the king of this group. Valorant is out there for the people who want more of a sweaty, you know, experience in kind of one of these. And then Marvel Rivals, or whatever the fuck, whichever one it is that just came out. And then also tap danced on Concord's grave. But Concord's like, hey, like, yeah, it's $40, but like, whenever we add new heroes, like, you're not gonna have to pay for those, and there's no microtransactions. And then Marvel Rivals is like, hey guys, it's free to play, and so will all the heroes that we ever put out for this game also will be free to play. Like, the only thing we're gonna charge for is cosmetics, which you don't need to have.
Also, so, even if it wasn't,
yeah,
you want to play fucking Nova Lord, or do you want to play Spider-Man? Right? Like,
yeah.
like come on, yo. I don't know, man. This game, I remember seeing the trailer, and I was like, yo, I know a hero shooter when I see one. You know, like this is like 5 to 6 uninterrupted minutes of Joss Whedon style banter, and like no gameplay. And then I was, it just, I don't know. This is the most predictable thing that I've seen in a while. This Concord's, you know, like you said, dead on arrival release. It just I don't know. I don't know anything. Anything.
Again, I feel bad for the developers because I'm sure they worked hard.
Yeah.
On this game for a long time.
Yeah, because this was
for them.
Firewalk. This was Firewalk,
yeah.
Right?
Yep.
And I remember, like, in the last game they did.
Was it that
I
VR?
can't remember the name of it.
That VR shooter?
That's not the one I'm thinking of. The one I'm thinking of is that first-person adventure game. Hold on. Maybe I'm thinking of the wrong people. I
They
might be thinking of
did.
the
I'm
wrong
pulling it
people.
up right now. No, not Concord. I don't want Concord, damn it. This is riveting radio
Yeah,
right now.
it's not that important. I thought I remember them. I thought I remember them doing another game that I thought I liked, but I might be getting it confused with something else.
No,
'Cause
this is the
this would
only
happen.
one. I think you might be. I think you are getting confused with
Okay.
somebody else. So
Well,
there
this
there
is
was a game
sad.
called Fire Watch that came out many years ago, which was a
You know
first
what?
person.
Knowing me and how my stupid brain works, that's probably it. I just conflated Fire Watch with Fire Walk because I'm a dummy, and this is what happens
So
when you get old and tired.
Carrie, give us the let's pull ourselves out of this spiral of negativity and tell us why you're having such a fun time playing Fields of Mistria.
Oh, bitch. This game's good. So Fields of Mystery is a game that I've been following the development of for a long time on Twitter. I've been following the devs for quite some time. Um, it's a farm sim, but with more of a fantasy flavor to it. Not quite all the way fantasy as a Rune Factory, but slightly more fantasy than like your typical Harvest Moon or Stardew Valley. Um, yeah, it's really good. It's very charming. It has basically imagine like Stardew Valley, but like a little more sort of like pastel colored and a little more little like the characters are all like anime style. Everyone's very attractive. Uh it's very charming. I'm a little simp for a good farm sim, and Mystria is doing just enough things different in terms of its storyline and in terms of like the things that you do in the game, like cooking and crafting and delving into the mines and combat and stuff like that. It's all done just a little bit differently from Stardew. That it's scratching that itch inside my brain for that kind of game. And I've put a lot of hours into Stardew Valley, of course, on PC alone. I have put more than 200 hours into Stardew Valley. And that doesn't count any of the time that I have on the Switch version. Um, Mystery is good. Again, it's an early access. I think it's like $12 or something like that. And there's a lot of things that are limited. It's like there are definitely more things to come in the mines, but currently the mines are sort of locked after a certain point. You can only advance character relationships to like the 4 heart mark out of a maximum of something like 20 or something like that. So you could be friends with everybody, but you can't date anybody yet. Um, there's only like, from what I can see, one like seasonal event, and it happened in spring. And other than that, you're just sort of like experiencing the seasons. But it's very charming. I love all the characters. I like seeing the characters interact with each other in the town. So like two of the marriage candidates, one is this sort of like witch woman who runs the bathhouse, and the other is like a doctor who runs the medical clinic in town. And they are both at the bar most nights just being fucking catty with each other as far as like who's right and like who has better taste and whatnot. So it's that sort of like magic versus science kind of rivalry between those two, which is really cute. But like every Friday night, basically the whole town goes to the inn, and there's a table where people are playing D&D, and there's a table where people are playing cards and that sort of thing. It's very charming. It's very charming. I'm a sucker for those kind of games. Again, with Mystria being a game that I've personally followed the development of online for the last few years, it's really nice to see it finally come out in a playable state. There are some little hiccups and issues that they're working to address. There have been some issues with like audio for me, as far as like the audio kind of stuttering and becoming distorted and whatnot. or like a cutscene will start and that audio will overlap with the existing audio rather than replacing the existing audio, so that just becomes just a cacophony of noise at that point. But speaking of the audio, the music is great. I actually am kind of homies online with one of the co-composers for the game, so I'm actually really excited to start covering some of the music from the game with one of my bands too. Very catchy. It's a pleasant, you would call it a cozy experience. But it seems like there's a lot left to sort of finalize with that game. So I don't know that there's a timeline for when it's going to release in a full state, but for an early access game, there is a fucking lot to do. So yeah, if you are into your Stardew Valley or, Harvest Moons, Rune Factories, those kind of like farm sims, and you are interested in another one, Fields of Mistria is definitely the way to go, right? So,
Very cool. I was gonna ask if you think it's worth playing now or waiting until there's more
yeah,
content,
I
but it
think
sounds
it's worth playing right now. Yeah, I mean, look, I've already got about 16 hours into it, and I just am starting the fall season.
Mhm.
And I think I'm going to probably play through the first sort of like full year before I sort of put it away for a while. Just in terms of like seeing everything that there is to do across the seasons and that sort of deal. But yeah, I would say, especially again at like 12 or $13, however much it costs. It's it's 13.99. Yeah. So again, $14 for an early access title that you can get easily 20 to 25 hours worth of gameplay out of before you hit the theoretical content wall. Yeah, certainly worth it.
very cool. Well,
Yeah.
that's what a wholesome end to an otherwise very kind of uneven news segment, let's say.
Well,
Let's take our last break, and we will return with the Dense Pixels post office. So if you're listening and you're not a member of our Discord, if you don't use Discord, well, I understand. But if you do use Discord, you should join by going to densepixels.com/fans so that you can submit us questions that we will answer on the show, just like Amir did. When he asked, does it ever get tiring for you guys in the gaming media space dealing with all of the controversies and boycotts surrounding games? I was so excited to play Black Myth Wukong. It's a really great game so far, but it feels like every time I'm excited for a game, the creator, developer, or publisher does something controversial, and now people are against the game and anyone who plays it. I just want to play some games to unwind.
look, there is no ethical consumption under capitalism.
That is one of the mottos of the show, I feel.
Yeah, something to keep in mind. Does it get tiring? I mean, no, because it means we always have something to talk about on this show week after week. But no, I mean, I guess from the point of a fan, I personally could give a shit about Black Myth Wukong either way. But I can understand being excited for a game and then having some big controversy come out and then sort of having that basically sort of take the wind out of your sails about it, right? But I think there's a lot being blown out of proportion with that game. I think there's a lot being blown out of proportion with a lot of games.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, play your games, man. Like,
well, and I think too, it's important to remember that studios are not monoliths. Like, just because maybe one person at the top of a studio or near the top of the studio has done some shitty things or said some shitty things or is kind of a shitbag in general, doesn't mean that everybody that worked on the game is shitty. So if you want, you can kind of rationalize it in that way, shape, or form. And yeah, like, it does get fatiguing. I think what's more fatiguing for me is just how, like, tribalism has infected every bit of our lives.
Everything.
Outside
Every
of
bit
politics.
everything.
Like,
Absolutely.
Things can't just exist and can't just be gauged on the merits. Like, everyone has to filter in to one camp or the other camp on either side of these issues and vociferously fight for their side, or or kind of like project their thoughts and their opinions onto this piece of property. Like a great example is that with Black Myth Wukong, a lot of the fucking SJW or anti-SJW brigade, glommed on to its success as, see, they don't want you talking about feminism and things like that. And look how popular this game is. This shows you that we're right. Never,
Same thing with like Stellar Blade,
Right,
right?
same
Where
thing.
it was like, all these, anti-woke, men's rights activists, kind of stupid incel dude bros online pointed to that game's success and were like, well, they don't want you to play this. And most people were like, dude, it's fucking fine. Like, who cares? Like,
Yeah. Now turn around and call them a Chinese sympathizer and see how they respond. Look,
But-
you gotta kind of find your tribe, and because like you said, everything is kind of divided up, but there's also a third group of people who just like doing stuff.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? And you just gotta kind of find them. One, stay off of social media as much as you can. And
It's
two,
hell.
if you are on social media, don't comment. Just don't comment.
Don't read the
right?
comments.
Like don't even read them. Exactly. Don't even read the comments. That's what I do. I'm on social media a lot. I just don't engage. And yeah, everything you said about tribalism is 100% true, and I get it. Right? Like, sometimes you just want to. Like, I was all set to buy that Star Wars game before the reviews came out. But even before that, people were like, yo, this chick's ugly, yo. So, like, but yo, she's so ugly. She's so ugly. First of all, she's a model, right?
Right,
Like,
exactly.
the fuck? Okay. And second of all, but how the game, though? How's the game, though?
Right.
Right? Like, I don't have
It's
a
like
problem.
same thing we already saw some folks try and be like, oh well, Monster Hunter's going woke because they showed a female hunter who had like a short haircut and a slightly squared jawline. Like,
All right, yo. All right. See, it's stuff like that. You just kind of gotta do your best to filter that stuff out.
Mhm.
And sometimes I fall into it, but like with Dragon Age, I get sick and fucking tired of people who have never played a Dragon Age game or have only played Origins halfway through and coming back and being like, there's a gay romance in this. Ugh. Like, who the fuck do you think Zevran was in the first one? And the one
Right?
that you love, right? Like, it's always been there. It's always been there, right? Oh, this game plays really weird. It's not like, no. They've been doing that for the past 10 fucking years. Like, it's been going that way.
Mhm.
So it gets annoying. It gets real annoying. But you know what I do when that stuff happens? I look at the trailer again and I'm like, I kind of want to play this game, man. Like, this shit looks hype. This shit looks fun, right? And that's what you got to do. You just gotta try and ignore people's bullshit opinions because they don't. Nobody's. Social media is just the worst because everyone has a platform now, and you didn't have to earn it.
Mhm.
It's different when you have to work, even a small amount of effort. Put a small amount of effort into having your opinion heard.
Mhm.
Now it's just like now people take it for granted because you don't have to,
Mhm.
right? And it's super easy to engage with people because like, especially when they're passionate about something, like they confuse that passion with it being their identity. That's another thing you can't do. You can't let products dictate your identity. I have preferences. I prefer that big vulva shaped black and white thing over to the black obelisk on the other side, right? But I'm not gonna sit here and just be like, Xbox bad, boo. You're an idiot if you like it. Like it's just weird,
Yeah.
It's just weird.
It's also okay just to enjoy things. Like I feel like that weirdly enough, some of the just kind of like taking a step back and observing the events in the U.S. over the last 4 weeks have just kind of reminded me that, like, being joyful and liking things is just way more fun than being miserable and doom and gloom all the time. And I've really made a concentrated effort to just kind of like do things that are making me happy right now, because it's so much more weightless to be having fun than it is to, you know, pick apart every little thing. So enjoy your gaming.
Just because you do not like
Dwayne
it does
Johnson
not
said.
make it problematic, and some people really do not understand this.
Yeah.
That too many people out there conflating I don't like this with, well, it's bad and therefore no one should like it. Like,
Yeah.
cool your jets.
Yep. But yeah, like as I said, and I was rudely talking over Carrie. Dwayne was right. Enjoy your gaming. That's the moral of the story. Film Wanderer says, "Has any game ever made you cry? Not in frustration, but in joy and/or in story beats." It's probably easier to name like games that haven't made us cry for various reasons. Typically sadness. I can't remember too many joyful times that I've cried at a game. It's usually because I'm sad at something that's happening on the screen.
Link's Awakening is a big one for me. That was one where, like, when I was a kid playing through that game, it made me feel some kind of way at the end, and then playing the remake on the Switch also made me feel some kind of way. Definitely was super tendy at the end of Endwalker, the Endwalker expansion for Final Fantasy XIV. I think those are my two big ones.
Last time I cried at a video game was the end of the first Marvel's Spider-Man. Yeah, I was messed up, man. I was like, oh, what the fuck? Come on, game. Come on, man.
Right in the
come on,
honey
man.
nut Helios, man.
Yeah, I mean, I know I've talked about the Morden situation, however you slice it, in Mass Effect 3. No matter what you do, that's a tearjerker. The tear-jerking moment for sure. I definitely cried at the end of Ghost of Tsushima, just because, like, I was in agony, and then I was very sad. Like, at the choice that I made, I was very sad that my adopted father basically, disowned me. So that was unfortunate. Sorry for spoilers for Ghost of Tsushima. You should have played it by now. It's been out for 5 years. But yeah, man, lots of games are capable of stirring up the old emotions. Even for a heartless piece of shit like me, I will still always cry at sports and at video games when they tug on the heartstrings. So
yeah, it don't take much for me to cry. Yes, good. I cry at movies all the time. Get out of here.
Mark asks, "What year do you think you spent the most on games? My bank account would have kicked the shit out of me some years if it could."
I can tell you with confidence that it was 2017. And not simply because of the sheer volume of games that I was buying that year, but because of the fact that I know that I bought multiple collector's editions. I bought the collector's edition of Breath of the Wild. I bought the collector's edition of Persona 5. I bought the collector's edition of Sonic Mania. Probably more than those three, but I bought those three, and then I bought a bunch of other games that year. Yeah, 2017 was easily the most money that I spent on software. And that's just like not even factoring hardware into the equation. Just gaming software, 2017, without a doubt.
I have no idea. I can't count that high.
So my situation's a little unique, because basically for 11 years, I didn't have to spend a ton of money on video games, because pretty much anything that I wanted, including game consoles, I got for free. So there was kind of a big gap in my need to spend. However, I will say it's a really good thing that Steam does not show you how much money you've spent on games on Steam, because I'm pretty sure the answer for me is 2023. Because again, they really should like have like two, like at least two pop-ups that you have to click past on Steam. Be like, are you sure you need this game? Like, are you really sure you need this? Like, I know it's on sale for a good price, but are you ever going to play it? But they don't do that. Instead, they're great enablers. And yes, I probably never spent more money on video games than I have last year. one would assume. Cam asks, what is a worse first feud for a Bryan Danielson world title run? 2013 Kane or 2024 Christian Cage? I think it's actually 2014 Kane, if memory serves. Obviously, Kane is worse, right? Because even back in 2014, Kane didn't have the juice. At least Christian Cage has juice right now in AEW.
Yeah, I would agree. Simply for the fact that it's Kane. It's got to be Kane.
No, it really doesn't have to be Kane. So yeah, that's my answer, and I think that's the only AEW question. And thank God, because I couldn't give a shit about about All In, which happened yesterday in ye old England.
I wanted to watch it, but until they figure out a way to let me watch it without having to pay $50 or whatever.
I don't know, man. Tony Khan's teasing that like they got that Max deal lined up. I guess soon, maybe. Who knows?
All right, well, hurry up, because like I actually like their pay-per-views, because like that's when they come really put on a show, right? That's when they care, right? Like the week-to-week television doesn't really do it for me. But if you want to see cool matches, there were at least 3 of them, from what I could tell. And yeah, we'll see.
All right. T-Wash says, with the leaked news of a canceled Crash Bandicoot 5, what canceled game bummed you out the most?
Yo, let me tell you something. The fact that we will never, ever get a Sleeping Dogs 2 really hurts me to my core, because I absolutely love that game. In terms of Grand Theft Auto clones, it is the best one. Fuck Saints Row, fuck all those other games. Sleeping Dogs was a phenomenal game. It took the Grand Theft Auto open world style formula. It put it with the Arkham style combat. The shooting mechanics were better than everything prior to every Grand Theft Auto prior to that. The story was good. It made sense. The characters were likable. The game was about an undercover cop trying to infiltrate and dismantle the Triad from the inside. And you would get missions, cop-based missions, but you would also get Triad-based missions to prove your loyalty, while remaining undercover. And it was in a great, facsimile of Hong Kong. It was something different. You know what I mean? It was a city, but it was still like kind of different. And it was super violent, and the story was good. And but the game didn't take itself too seriously, right? Because they had this one DLC, which was essentially Enter the Dragon. Like, you go on this remote island, and there was like a boss, and it was a tournament. Like, it was, God, that game was so fun, man. James Hong was in it. Who don't like James Hong, yo? Come on, man.
Is he still with us?
I think he is,
Okay,
because Asian people, they stay around.
Dude, he's looked the same for like 35 years.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I think James Hong. Let's hope he is. I'm gonna find out, because if man, I might go play that game again. I bought that game on like 3 systems because I love that game. I absolutely love it.
For me, it's Kingdoms of Amalur 2. Not only because I liked the first one and was bummed that we never got a sequel, but also the story behind that game's cancellation is a fucking tragedy, because they literally had a publishing agreement lined up with 2K that they were going to sign, and then literally the day before they were to sign the agreement is when the then governor of Rhode Island, Lincoln Chafee, came out and announced that 38 Studios, which was the Kurt Schilling company that owned the IP, was financially insolvent, and 2K pulled the deal off the table and completely ended that whole all those studios that were involved. I mean, big huge, pivoted and became something else, and has now been fairly successful in developing like mobile titles and stuff like that. But I mean, still, a fucking tragic tale behind that.
That's a bummer. Honestly, the news about the Crash cancellation is kind of a bummer, knowing that it was meant to be a crossover with Spyro, which they did once before many years ago, the Game Boy Advance, if anybody else remembers those games. But yeah, that's a bummer. Mega Man Legends 3, that's a bummer. That was supposed to be, 3DS?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Chrono Break, that's an interesting story. That was going to be the third mainline entry in the Chrono series after Trigger and Cross, and had apparently there were a bunch of trademarks filed, and a lot of folks from the original couple games like Hironobu Sakaguchi, Masato Kato, were going to be involved, and that was just scrapped, and those guys went on to work on other things. But yeah, I think of Mega Man Legends 3 and the fact that like they had promo artwork, it was announced during like a Nintendo press conference and all that, and that just didn't fucking happen. So
Seekent asks me, what does an open world game need to have in it to grab and keep your attention for you to complete it? So I was thinking about this earlier today because I saw this question when it was posted. So I would say that my favorite open world game that I played is Ghost of Tsushima, and two more that I also really liked were the Infamous titles. So if you can extrapolate from there, and wow, that was all Sucker Punch too. I was saying, so apparently I just need Sucker Punch to develop to develop a game, and that's what it'll take to grab. So basically, what I need is interesting forms of traversal. I need engaging combat that's actually fun to play. I need a good story that will pull me forward to the next area. I need nice visuals to give me something fun to look at, and I need the side quests and like and the map vomit to not feel repetitive. It can be repetitive because that stuff inevitably is going to be repetitive, but it can't feel repetitive. Like in Ghosts, I didn't care about having to go out and clearing out soldier Mongol enclaves because it was fun to fight people in Ghost of Tsushima, and they gave you a lot of toys to play with and a lot of tools at your disposal so that you could approach things in very different methods. So it was fun to do those because I liked fighting in that game. I didn't mind doing the stupid fox shrines because typically when you came across one, you didn't have to go too far out of your way to locate it with the fucking fox, right? So like that wasn't that big of a deal. I didn't mind doing the fucking the temples or whatever the hell where you had to do like the parkour shit, because the traversal in that game was also fun. So like that's what I need. I need the rest of the game to be there. Essentially, like it can't just be an open world, and that's why the Ubisoft games usually don't keep me engaged the whole way through, is because they feel so repetitive and they're just not as fun to play as, I guess, games that Sucker Punch releases specifically. So that's what I need. And then he also asked, collectively, if you and your families had to live in a game universe, which one would it be?
Pokemon. Yeah.
I mean, I hate to keep going back to the greatest trilogy of my favorite trilogy of games, but Mass Effect, yeah.
Even with the whole impending death?
Yeah. Shepard got it. Shepherd guy.
I mean, I would love to see.
Now, do I get to be Shepherd, or I'm just like
No, I
an
think you just
NPC
live. I
in
just think
this
you just
world?
live in the
Oh.
galactic society circa 2187 or whenever the game takes place.
That is different. I don't know. I'm gonna cop out and say Spider-Man because it's just New York.
Yeah, but with supervillains that could potentially kill you and ruin your day.
Spidey got it. Spidey.
Your,
Spidey got
your
it. Okay.
insurance rates are going to be so fucking high.
They will be
dude.
so high. Oh my god! Like that's the part of like I want someone to make the comic story about like the fucking insurance adjuster in superhero universes. I feel like there could be an interesting story there somewhere. Mad Coco G asks a question that I think is hyper targeted towards Carrie. Are any of you excited for Outer Worlds 2? If that's even a thing, since there's been no word on it now for a couple of years.
I'd like to see more of it first. It was announced in 2021, and we haven't really seen anything of it yet. As far as the first Outer Worlds, I played it when it came out. I liked it enough, but I never wanted to go back to it. It wasn't enough for me. It didn't hook me the way that Fallout hooked me, you know. Whereas I'll go back and I'll replay a Fallout game 2 or 3 times at least. Outer Worlds, it was like I finished it and I was like, I'm done now. And then I uninstalled it. I haven't even reconsidered reinstalling it. There was DLC. Never played that. Don't really care to at this point. I feel like I would have to replay the entire game to understand what the fuck's going on in the DLC. I guess it's... Look, I like Obsidian. I like what they tried to do with the Outer Worlds. I'm assuming that they're focusing... You know, Obsidian's not a massive company. They're a relatively mid-sized developer. So I imagine most of their bandwidth is being put towards Avowed right now, which is, I think, what we've seen more of, and actually has a somewhat concrete release date of February 18th, 2025. So I'm assuming after Avowed comes out, we'll probably start to see more of Outer Worlds 2, because presumably more of the dev team will be freed up for it. Am I excited for it? No. But that could change.
But you
That
could be.
change.
You could be.
I could be. I could be convinced to be excited for Outer Worlds 2. Yeah, they put the right people in charge of that game, and if they take sort of the lessons learned from the first game and make it into like a really solid sort of sophomore effort for what could theoretically be a really interesting franchise, then sure, I could be convinced to be excited. But right now, Outer Worlds 2 sure is a game that is presumably being developed somewhere.
Cam asks, in honor of Psycho Sid's passing, do any of you have a favorite Sid memory?
No.
I just found out about this before the show started, so I didn't really have time to think about it. But I will default to Sid delivering the one-word line with the most gravitas that any big dumb meathead could deliver a line, when he's screaming because Goldberg wrecked his car or whatever it was, and he's just screaming, "Go back!" Right, like he's looking up to the heavens and screaming, right? Like it's you know, it's hilarious. I used to love Sid, man. I'm the master and the ruler of the world. You know why I liked Sid? Because he looked like Super Macho Man from Punch Out with blonde hair.
It's unfortunate that most of Sid's most notable moments now are like almost like a blooper reel of professional wrestling in a lot of ways.
Like him breaking his leg.
Yeah.
Like Jesus.
Or him telling Kevin Nash that you're not half the man that I am, and I've got half the brain that you do.
While Kevin Nash was wearing a Sid mask or some shit. Like,
my favorite moment though is when he is arguably Sid's greatest moment, where he did the entire wrestling world a fantastic service by yanking Hulk Hogan over the top rope in the Royal Rumble, or no, other way. That was the other way around. Shit. See, my favorite Sid moment is not even. I'm even not even. It was Hogan that pulled Sid out like the heel that he is, so that Ric Flair could win the world title in WWF. There you go. I'm happy. My favorite Sid moment is him getting eliminated from the Royal Rumble by Hulk Hogan illegally, so that Ric Flair could become WWF World Champion with the tear in his eye. So there you go. That's my favorite one. Cam says Cam's been busy tonight. The first trailer for Sonic 3 is set to release tomorrow, and with Keanu voicing Shadow the Hedgehog, what is the current level of hype?
I'm ready. I'm ready to live. I'm ready to learn. So
I understood that reference.
No shit. I literally have an appointment for a tattoo this week, where I will finally be getting my matching little shadow down here on my arm next to my Sonic. So, yeah, it's good timing for me. Yeah, I'm ready for it. I'm very much looking forward to it. To throw back to an earlier discussion, I will also be pre-ordering that fucking ridiculous collector's edition of Sonic and Shadow Generations. Did you guys see that? It's like $250 and it comes with a big ass statue of Sonic and Shadow on a Dreamcast. Like,
Don't do that.
Jesus.
no, I'm going to.
Don't spend $250 on anything with Sonic in the title.
Look,
That can't be a good idea.
you can't stop me.
I know, but I implore you to not make this poor life choice. Holy
Look.
shit.
That goes for the Hedgehog or for the Burger Company. Don't
That's true
spend
too. Yeah, don't spend
$250
$250 at Sonic restaurant either.
Nah,
I do like a
my
strawberry
owls
limeade
where
though.
They are.
I will
Like,
say.
I like a milkshake, but no, it comes with a bunch of shit, so I want it.
Speaking of spending money, Gustavo asks, how much did you guys
Yeah.
spend on a PC? I want to buy one, but I don't know where to start. So here's what I'll tell you. So there is conventional wisdom that you don't want to buy like the fucking retail builds that are out there because they're generally going to be under spec and you're paying more than you're getting. And that's still probably true. And then the conventional wisdom used to be that like it's cheaper if you buy everything a la carte and then assemble it yourself, which if you've never done it before is apparently a little tricky. But nowadays, with the how much like PC components cost right now, especially graphics cards, you actually are probably better off doing a custom build through a reputable site that offers them, because you're kind of getting the best of both worlds. You're getting the buying power of a company that buys the shit in bulk so they can offer it to you at a lower price, and they're doing the assembly for you so that you don't have to fuck around with that stuff. So like iBuyPower, NZXT, like all those kind of sites where you can kind of build your own PC.
PC Part Picker is a big one.
Yeah, like that's kind of the best way to go at this point. Now, how much should you spend? That's up to you. I went probably a little. It
really depends on what your needs are.
Yeah, I wanted to kind of future-proof myself a little bit, so I was willing to spend a little more. And my that I built a year and a half ago, it's about $2,200, give or take. But I also have like a 4070 Ti graphics card and like a fucking super fast Intel processor and all that kind of shit. So like I spent more now, so I didn't have to buy like another graphics card in 3 years when, you know, buying a cheap graphics card would have been outdated, right? So like that was kind of my mindset. I want to go ideally like 5 years before I have to upgrade anything, and I'd be pretty happy with that.
Yeah.
So
I've been a PC person for a long time at this point. That being said, I had benefited greatly from the fact that my ex-husband is a software engineer and had built multiple PCs. He built his own. He built my first one, and then he built me current one as a gift a few years ago. So some of the parts that I have are starting to get a little bit dated. So I've only got an NVIDIA GeForce RTX 2070. I would like to upgrade that to a 3070. or better sometime soon. That's sort of my biggest sort of hiccup at this point. Even then, even with the 2070 though, given that I have an AMD Ryzen 9 3900X 12 core processor, you know, plenty of RAM, um, you know, I haven't really had any issues with this machine, and I use this machine as my production machine too, so I do a lot of video editing and whatnot on this machine as well. So generally speaking, I'm doing pretty okay. The only thing that's sort of like wibbly at this point is the fact that I have a 6-year-old graphics card. And I would like to maybe update that to whatever the next version is, so that at that point, then it's like, cool, I spend a lot on the graphics card upgrade, but then that's probably the only thing I really have to worry about for another probably 5 or 6 years.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, ultimately, like, go on, you know, like your PC part picker, similar kind of website, and just sort of like compare and contrast. If you're doing a lot of production like I am, you'll probably really want to spend a lot of money. If you're just using it for, you know, games and you don't even necessarily need like the 4K top of the line sort of high fidelity graphics, then you probably don't even need the top of the line stuff in that case either. So
And that's the thing, like a lot of those builder sites, like they literally will help you through that. They'll say, okay, like what games do you like to play? All right, well if you get this set up, it'll play like Grand Theft Auto 5 at 1080p 60 FPS. But if you want to play shit at like ultra settings, like yeah, you're gonna have to spend more on a graphics card and probably a processor as well. So I would noodle around. Like I spent way more time than I needed to on on those sites, like building stuff, before I decided on what I wanted. And also too, like if you're patient, a lot of times you can wait for sales. You know, they'll often do shit like, you know, buy one get one free on RAM sticks, so that you can get, you know, instead of having, you know, 16 gigs of RAM, you can get 32 for the same price, and that's a pretty good deal. Or, you know, they'll do tie-ins with, you know, like graphics card and processor configurations and stuff like that. So just shop around, and I'm sure you'll find something that you'll like.
yep.
I think, yeah. Finally, Johnny asked, should a game get docked points because there is not enough diversity according to one's taste, even if the game consists of anthropomorphic animals doing martial arts? I'm fucking serious, by the way. Michael, what game is Johnny referring to here?
I have no idea.
I think he's talking about Black Myth Wukong.
Oh,
Because
because it's not,
a big gripe about that game is that there's not really a lot of female characters. It's mostly like vast majority men. And look, theoretically, Johnny could come in and be like, "No, I was actually talking about this." But assuming that we're talking about Black Myth Wukong, there's a lot of things about that game that one could say are like maybe questionable. Diversity being one of them. The lack of female representation within the story could probably be better. That being said, like, should a game get docked points based on XYZ? That's ultimately, it's going to depend on who you are as a person, what your values are as a person, and what your taste is. You know, if I'm playing a game, I'm going to be looking for more female representation, and I'm going to notice maybe a lot faster than a cisgendered man if there's not many women to be found in the game. So for me, it's probably going to be a slightly bigger deal than it would be for a straight cis male. That being said, you know, at the end of the day, most of the time video games are just fucking video games. It's not that big a deal. So should XYZ get docked points? That's up to you, man. Like, I think in the grand scheme of things, you know, you have more people looking more critically at diversity these days, just in general, just because that's where we are as a society, is examining diversity and examining representation and looking with a more critical eye and saying, is this a fair representation of different marginalized communities? And, you know, anthropomorphic animals notwithstanding, there could still probably stand to be better female representation in Black Wukong. But ultimately, if you like the game, if you decide, hey, you know what, I don't really care that much about this doesn't, or it doesn't impact my enjoyment of the game, then fucking whatever, dude. That's on you.
yeah, it doesn't really matter. if that were the case, then no game would be perfect because it doesn't star a black guy, for my taste. You know what I mean?
So you're saying
And
your favorite game of all time is Prototype 2?
oh Jesus Christ!
Featuring Black Prototype as he's known on this show.
Right, fucking black prototype. I fucking hate that guy. And representation. Look, I like Grand Theft Auto San Andreas as much as the next person, but like, I don't need the. If you were to name a game that stars a black person, the first thing you say is Grand Theft Auto San Andreas. Like, I get it, but like, I think that's a bit of a problem. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So, yeah, I echo everything that Carrie said because you're 100% right. Like, ultimately, it's up to the individual, right? Like, these are just opinions. People. That's another thing that people do that, like, going back to Amir's question from like 15 minutes ago, people attach other people's opinions on a game and to validate their own or to find a reason to lash out at people. And it's just like, yo, it's just an opinion. That's why if you wanted to, that's why scores are dumb, right? Like, that's why scores are dumb. I get it, right? You just want a quick snapshot. If you want a quick snapshot, here's a pro tip. Just read the last paragraph. Read the last paragraph of a review that pretty much sums up what that person thought of it. And if you want to read more, go back up and read. You can probably skip the first paragraph because that's usually some dumb intro. But like, go into the body of the review to get specifics. But scores are stupid, right? And it's I don't know. I lost my train of thought because I'm old and I'm tired.
I think
But
the other thing to sort of add to this sort of last conversation we're having here today is something to always keep in mind is the fact that there is no such thing as a truly objective review. Every reviewer is going to be influenced by their life and their values and how they experience media and all that sort of thing, right? So if the reviewers sort of goals, if their values in playing games don't necessarily align with yours, then maybe they're going to dock points off of a review score for something that doesn't matter as much to you. So, you know, find the couple of outlets that you feel like you can trust or you feel sort of like align with your tastes and maybe trust them first. But even then, if you're feeling like, oh well, this game or that game got docked points because of whatever, at the end of the day, review scores don't fucking matter.
Yeah.
They don't matter at all. They maybe matter to shareholders somewhere, but they don't matter at all in the grand scheme of things, and they certainly shouldn't matter to you or have any impact on your enjoyment of a piece of meat.
And I will say, hey, straight, cisgender white male here to offer his opinion, which of course carries much weight. What I will say, just to kind of put a bow on it, is as games do get more inclusive, the games that aren't as inclusive from their representation of characters and things that stand out more, in a negative way, by the way. So I think really ultimately, like, when they don't, when you don't make a game have representation that can glom onto a lot of people, you're actually doing your own game a disservice a little bit. And it almost matters less critically how the game's received more than it does commercially how the game is received. Because as we've seen, the most powerful thing in this industry is not critic reviews, it's word of mouth and player sentiment. And that kind of runs through games faster than anything, especially nowadays with our the terrible invention of social media, just to really tie the entire conversation back together. So game developers should probably be looking to attract as wide an audience as they can, even if it's just in ways that just helps people be seen a little bit more in these games. So,
I mean, if this was the case, I would hate The Witcher because The Witcher has no black people in it. They only have people with tans in the game. Like, it's weird. It's weird. And look, it's not something that most people would pick up on, but I picked up on it, yo. Like ask a black person who's played The Witcher. I played all 3 of them. There's no black people in it. Maybe that's why the game sold so well.
I mean, but to be fair, Micah, to the developers in Poland, like they would actually have had to have seen a black person to recognize. I'd be curious to know how many black people were living in Poland. Like, I think that's the same thing as it's the Japan problem.
TVs. They want TVs. They want movies.
You know.
Oh man, it's just funny. It's just funny.
Yeah.
And I like that series. So.
Well, that's.
I hope the next one. It has one black NPC. And
fuck, I hope the main character is black, so that all the Witcher fans can get, all the racist Witcher fans can get in their feelings about a black Witcher.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
good.
Nice supersized episode for you guys this week. That's going to do it for us. Again, don't forget to join our Discord at densepixels.com/fans. If you're listening to this on a podcast service, we also put this out on video format on YouTube, youtube.com/densepixels. If you're watching us on YouTube, check us out on podcast services where you can find us and all the other TNP Studio shows. And for just $5 a month, you can sign up for TNP Studios premium content by going to densepixels.com/premium to get access to the premium slate of podcasts. That is going to do it for us this week. Thank you all very much for watching and listening, and we will see you all the next time.
See ya.
See ya.
You're watching the Dense Pixels YouTube channel. Click the subscribe button while you're here and make sure you check out our weekly podcast where we discuss the latest gaming news and our impressions on what games we've been playing.